Welcome back.
Today's topic is brotherhood and sisterhood. What's that mean?
Well, we're going to talk about it in context of creating family-like relationships with your close friends, for one thing.
There are examples we'll use from Chinese history as well as from fraternal traditions in the West. Plus, we'll mention that a few of Yingying's favorite shows from her old student days, like Gossip Girls and Desperate Housewives, illustrate various versions of these principles, sometimes for better and other times for worse.
Hey, okay, those were guilty pleasures, but they were instructive and a lot of fun at that time. Don't judge me, old man.
Okay, now we are now entering the judgment-free zone dead ahead, so buckle up. We're going to start by looking at one of the most well-known stories in Chinese history that deals with the topic of brotherhood.
The English name here is roughly Oath of Peach Garden, or the Brotherhood forged in the Peach Garden, 桃园三结义. It's about an oath that bound three men to be of one mind and devote themselves to their country during the Three Kingdoms period.
Roughly when was the Three Kingdoms period?
It was 220 to 280 AD. The story was created at the Sanyi Temple, Sanyigong. The story is often cited as a symbol of fraternal loyalty. It centers on three well-known figures, Liu Bei, Guan Yu, and Zhang Fei, who together took an oath of brotherhood under some peach blossom trees.
So they weren't actually blood brothers, just close friends who shared a common vision?
Correct. Liu Bei was the eldest, and Zhang Fei the youngest. At that time, Chinese society was undergoing great change. Liu Bei later became the emperor that established the Shu Han regime during the Three Kingdoms period, and the other two played important roles in establishing the state. The three men's solidarity, loyalty, and the righteousness have inspired Chinese people for generations.
That's very cool. And it's a lasting story that people know about even today here, right?
Yes. To commemorate this particular event, a temple was built on the very spot where the three took their oath during the Sui dynasty about 1400 years ago. The name of the temple is Sanyi, which literally translates as three righteousness. The building saw the rise and fall of many dynasties. March 23rd in the Chinese calendar is said to be when Liu Bei was born. So every year on this date, people from around China gather at Sanyi Temple to commemorate and pay respect to the three heroes.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I love that one. What's your Western take on brotherhood?
Well, it's interesting for me, and I'll take this in a slightly different direction. Instead of history, I'll talk about my personal history. Now, I am actually an only child, so I don't have any brothers or sisters.
Your only child?
I know, it's hard to believe, right? They saw me and like, one is enough. So, growing up, and we moved around a lot, so I didn't have, like one consistent friend, and I moved and I always kind of had like that one really great friend I made, like had kind of a best friend every place I moved. And so later in my adult life, I actually found a sense of brotherhood with my fraternity.
You're in college fraternity?
Not actually a college fraternity. Of course, those are more social in character, and a lot of them are devoted to various ideals, but they tend to be kind of more party-oriented and also developing their members in different ways for businesses or things like that. But I am in a different fraternity. I'm in a philosophical fraternity called Freemasonry.
What is Freemason?
Well, that's a very interesting topic, and I brought it up, so I guess I should say something about it, but it's probably a topic for another show on another series entirely. But essentially, it's a group of men who share interest in certain philosophical ideals, right? And there's basically a sense of brotherhood internally, and in a sentence, it's about helping people best develop their internal character so they can be a better use to the world, and you sort of hold each other accountable to that, right?
Wow. Very nice. Thanks for sharing.
My pleasure. Now, next we're going to look at 8 words about brotherhood that are pretty famous here in China. There's a quote, and the quote is, "If brothers are of the same mind, their sharpness can cut through metal." That sounds pretty gangsta. President Xi has mentioned this many times in internal Chinese dialogues, as I understand, and a lot of speeches here within the country. It's not so much of an outbound thing, it's more internal Chinese. And it's very popular, but it's also considered really relevant today.
Yeah, the Chinese here is 兄弟同心，其利断金.
兄弟同心，其利断金.
Not too bad.
Thank you.
The analogy can exert a lot of power as long as the brothers have one heart. It refers to solidarity and cooperation. It means that if the two can work together, then the power of cohesion is like a sharp knife that can cut metal. For like-minded people who share the same heart, like caring for humanity. It's like smelling orchids.
There are also some interesting things to say on the topic of sisterhood and the special sister-type relationships among Chinese female friends. This actually has a lot of its roots in the one-child policy.
Right. There's a reason why there's something unique about women's friendships here in China, and local brands understand this and reflect it in their marketing to younger millennial women. Since most of their target customers were born during the one-child policy, they grew up without the company of sisters.
So they formed sister or brother relationships with their close friends and extended family. My friend calls herself the cousin sister of her first cousin, for instance.
Yes, that's very common.
And when you go out and do just daily things, y'all like to travel in packs.
It's true. Chinese girls like going to gym together, for example, not only for exercise, but also a great way for socializing. It's so much fun to take a Zumba class with your girls.
I can see that, although I'll take your word on it instead of testing it myself.
Yeah, we really get a lot of joy and a sense of belonging from it. Also, in cities like Beijing, girls like to have afternoon tea together when they can.
Speaking of brands that are savvy to this phenomenon, Adidas's rep put it best in an advertising journal interview where she said that, quote, friendship offers women a sister-like relationship where they can share their dreams and passions, end quote. A previous campaign of theirs was themed All In for My Girls, and it showed a group of women racing out of the office together on a Friday to go work out.
Well, we have a term for that. Those are our 闺蜜. Our best female friends.
Usually, 闺蜜 is used to describe women, but in recent years, more and more girls have used this synonym for male friends, resulting in the word 男闺蜜, which means male 闺蜜. What are some of the standards to determine who's in your 闺蜜 circle, though? And sorry about my pronunciation. I know that's horrible.
Well, for us girls, there are a few reference points to know where you stand. One is if you sleep with her in the same bed. To be a really good girlfriend, you have to have slept in the same bed and chatted throughout the night. You exchanged every kind of story, including your own family, and talk about their boys they have a crush on.
Okay, I'm going to look at your notes here to have something to say myself. All right. So it also helps if you've known each other a long time, I see, yeah?
Right. At least 5 years is best. A good girlfriend is like a wine. Over a long period of time, you have experienced many stories together and fully understand each other.
It's also apparently important to be able to argue and still keep a good relationship.
Of course. Who said that girlfriends shouldn't quarrel?
I didn't say that.
The girlfriends who really care about each other will not hold back what they think. If your girlfriend is doing something wrong or makes a bad man but does not see it, you cannot stand to see her deceived or make a bad choice.
Can we define bad choice?
Later. Okay. If you have to, you will directly criticize her to keep her away from that harm.
Number 4 is that all of your family knows her. That makes sense.
If your relationship is very good, the families on both sides really get to know each other. And if you say you're traveling or spending time with this friend, everyone feels at ease and doesn't worry.
And the last thing on your list there is that you often joke around with or even humorously criticize her. Now, I guess this is different than the type of criticizing you do to warn someone away from danger, right?
It is. With your best friends, there really are no limits on what you can joke or talk about. There's no need to worry. Because if you're truly good friends, you will understand each other and forgive if there's a slight offense.
Before we wrap up, let's talk just a little bit about how these more girlish or younger types of relationships translate into adulthood. Now, I'm assuming that grown women don't sleep in the same bed and hold hands the same way college girls do, yeah? Or am I missing something?
Well, the pressures and realities of life may change, and the shows of affection will change too, but the feelings of closeness remain. Grown female friends may still sometimes hold hands, and they definitely still talk to each other in much the same way they did back when they were younger. It's just the topics that have changed, mostly.
Good to know. Thanks, Yingying. So that's a little bit of an overview of this brotherhood and sisterhood idea. We hope that shed some light on the bonds between male and female friends here in China and gave you a way to relate them to such relationships in the West.
Don't forget that we'd like to hear more about your stories too, especially as we prepare our first official topics for Season 2. So please write us via website or on social media to let us know what you're thinking and care about.
For sure. And one quick programming note about Season 2. We're going to take the last few days of December and the first few days of January off for the new year since we'll both be traveling around that time. Plus, we figure you can use a break too. But we're coming back strong with a big slate of great guests who are going to join us and offer their insights. Plus, we want to include listeners with a strong point of view on the show too, wherever we can.
Right, we'll have a special link to submit yourself to be a show guest coming soon on howchinaworkspodcast.com. Plus, there's a lot of feedback and a growing list of resources there already. So please check that out when you have a chance.
Okay, that's all for today. We'll be back tomorrow to talk about who pays during Nights Out, plus other details about the magic flow of relationships here. I'm Brendan Davis.
And I'm Yingying Li. See you Friday on How China Works.